Alrighty, this video is to assist with some dimensioning and a few other questions that we have on the Module 5 conference room. So here you can see I have the completed conference room drawing. It's on a title block, B-size architectural title block. And the questions were in regard to changing the text dimensions from vertical to horizontal. And so when we work with dimensions, we're working with either the annotation or on the home menu. And so we use dimensions so often that they put them in both places. And you have these different types of dimensions. You have linear, which means either horizontal or aligned. Either horizontal or vertical. So it depends on the placement of the third click of whether or not it's horizontal or vertical. And so you can see the green marks that show position 1 and position 2. They really should have a position 3 to show that the red line is the third position, and that makes it a horizontal. And I'll show you how that works. And so here's a linear dimension, and let's say we wanted to put a vertical dimension on the conference room table. I'm going to set the O snaps for endpoint. There we go, we're good. You always want to use object snaps when you dimension, because if you don't, the dimensions will not be accurate. And so we'll dimension to the endpoint of this line, the endpoint of this line, and we can see that it's 12 feet. And I'm just running on the door layer. We really want to put that onto the dimension layer, and so we can go and put that on the dimension layer like that. Now that's a vertical dimension. Horizontal dimension would be created this way. And I think I'll put this one on the orange one. Here's a real quick way to match properties. Use the match properties command. Alrighty, and so if we wanted this one to be horizontal, it really can't be, because now if we're talking about the text within that, that's something that's kind of different. But when you work with linear dimensions, essentially it just depends on where you click the third point. And so when we work with a linear dimension, we're going to get either a horizontal or a vertical, depending on how we click those dimensional positions. Vertical would be up and down, and horizontal would be left to right. And that's basically all there is to that. How to draw a door on its own layer with decrease in line thickness. So as we look at the doors for this drawing, you can draw the doors from the exercise information in the content section of Module 5. And so in Module 5, here's our door, and we have 2 doors for this conference room. And here's the geometry for that. And so it's 3 feet by 1 3/4, and then this arc radius is 3 feet. And so we can draw that, and we can just go to the door layer, and then we can go ahead and draw our lines. Now before we draw our lines, what we want to do is check our drafting settings. And in our drafting settings, we can find those here under Tools. We want to make sure that polar tracking is enabled. As far as snap and grid, we can use that if we want to. We can turn our snap on. Since the door is in 1/4 inch increments, I'm going to set the snap to 1/4. Polar tracking is enabled, and then object snap is enabled, and I like to have object tracking on as well. Alright, and then to draw the door, what we would do is we would draw a line, and we can just draw that line like this, and we can draw that. The way that we have it in the textbook, it goes vertical, so I'll draw it the way they have right here in the book, and then we'll rotate it. And so you can see I get the green tracking line because my polar tracking, and that's the glyph or hieroglyphic, is on. And we want that because it works better that way. And then we're going to just extend this out. you can see that the cursor units are increasing by 1/4 of an inch, and so you can either watch until you get to 3, or a better way is to just type in 3 feet, enter, and then we'll go out to the left side and we'll type in 1-3/4 for 1 3/4. You can put the inch mark, but you don't have to. And then we can come back down, and rather than type in the distance, you can swipe it since we have object tracking on. And so swiping it means you hover over that point and then you bring it over to where you want it to be and you'll get a track. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's a quicker way than inputting the coordinates. All right, now we'll put a radial dimension on this, and so what we'll do is we'll draw a circle and then we'll trim it. And so I usually just draw a circle like this, and then I draw a line, and that was a quadrant O-snap. And so that's the geometry that we have for the door. We've drawn this, and our arc is a circle that we're going to trim. It's easier to draw circles than it is to trim than it is to draw arcs. So we're going to go to the trim command, and then we're going to just trim that, and that's basically it. Now once we have the door drawn, you can just rotate it, use an endpoint, and then rotate it. And again, the polar will help. If it doesn't go perfectly 90 degrees, you can turn on the ortho button, and that'll keep it lined up as well. So that's the configuration that we want with the door swing, so that it opens and closes like that, and then we would just use a move command to move that into place. Alrighty. And then lastly, if the layer isn't showing up for the door, check to make sure that it's on, because it often will happen is it will switch layers or will turn off the layer, and then if the layer is off, even if you're drawing, you won't see the lines because the layer is off. I'm going to turn off the ortho until you turn the layer back on, and then you'll see the geometry. So make sure that the layer is on. Other than that, it might be something else if you don't see it, and I'm not sure. So we would have to check what that would be. So ensure that the layer is on and visible as you work with it. And on and visible. On is this button right here, as well as this button. It's on, off, and freeze thaw, and they really do the same thing. One of them recalculates the database. Alrighty, and then I'm just going to erase this one off here and go back to my floor plan exercise, and that completes this video recording.